Let me know what you think about, the Batman. What was your favorite parts? Do you feel like it wasn't fun? Because I feel like it wasn't fun. Can you sit through it again? Can you pay money to watch it more than one time? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Ho Views, and today we are going to be discussing The Batman. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't so far. Most of the views come from the unsubscribed, and we would love to get more return viewers engaging in conversation here on the channel as we talk about all the movies, TV shows, and things that we love. Let's go ahead and talk about The Batman. This will be a spoiler review. It's going to be relatively light. I'm not going to give a whole bunch of specific plot details, but I will throw up a little spoiler image if you are watching, or I will mention that, hey, we're going to get into some spoilers if you're just listening to me talk along. So let's go ahead and discuss the actual movie. If you are a friend of the channel and you follow what I do, you saw that I put like a just out of the movie post that I did, and it may have seemed like it was kind of negative. I need to be very clear. I loved this movie. I think that this movie was very, very good. It was a great Batman film. But I want to start with my complaints, my one really big complaint, and then get into all the things that I enjoyed, negatives first, all the positive stuff on the back end. So this part is spoiler free. Talking about it, the thing I didn't like the most about the film overall would have to be the relationship between Batman and Alfred. I did not like the way it was portrayed here. I do not think that is a directorial choice or a writing choice. It's just where we are in the story of Batman. These are not spoilers if you are aware with the mythos of Batman. So we are not getting the Ben Affleck Batman, who is Batman for 20 plus years in Gotham, fighting alongside Alfred. His childhood was very, very far behind him. They had bonded on a level to where when we saw them interact on camera, they were a well-oiled machine, very cohesive unit. They were hand in hand. Everything went well between them two. That is not what we're getting here with Andy Serkis as Alfred and Robert Pattinson as Batman. We're getting Batman 2 years in. He is a machine. He is focused on the mission. He does not care about life outside the mission. Wayne Enterprises, none of that stuff from the Nolan films. Like that, there is no real kosher, good, strong relationship between those two at this point in the movie that we're getting. And to me, it really, really shows that he and Alfred have not yet bonded. They are not yet close. And we are seeing a Batman who still has a chip on his shoulder, who still doesn't feel like he needs anyone to be successful, and thinks that he can still be successful with just brute strength and force. And it's really good. And I think it's done well, and we get the point by the time we get to the end. But I didn't care to see it. I didn't like any of their scenes together. And I'll talk more about those later when we get into the spoilers. But that is my biggest complaint really about the film. Now let's talk about what I loved. And we're gonna go by category here because the overall score for the movie for me is an 8.4 out of 10. Remember, when I talk about movies here, there are scales to everything. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at my Texas Chainsaw score, it's very generous because, hey man, it's a Netflix movie. It's a reboot of an old slasher. It's like, hey man, they got some things I don't like, but kill some people on screen, I'm okay with it. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a film is not on the level in any regard to the Batman. The Batman is on a whole nother level. To me, it's top tier filmmaking. So when I say 8.4 out of 10 here, this is 8.4 out of 10 standing up next to any movie that could get nominated for any award. Like this one is one of the best that you'll be seeing no matter who you are. This is one of the greatest movies that you'll look at in the year because it can stand up next to Oscar-worthy movies like real dramatic, powerful acting, the cinematography, all that type of stuff that people look at. The score, oh my goodness. There's a lot of good things about the movie, and I just need you to know that, an 8 for Batman, it's way different than an 8 for like anything else that I tend to talk about here on the channel. Like this one is a cut above. With that being said, let's get into the visuals of the movie. Only complaint about the visuals is that the movie is very dark, but it's Gotham City, it's Batman, and the darkness is used to his advantage, and it's very clear as to what they're trying to do with that darkness. So I don't have any complaints about the actual darkness of the movie. It's just something I noticed as I'm watching it. Like, hey, I'm kind of not seeing everything. Like, this is a cool Batman suit, and you can't see it well because everything is so dark and raining all the time. But besides that, that would be the only kind of negative from the visual side of things, because when you move past what you're seeing, and again, cinematography amazing, but you get into the performances that you're looking at on the screen, my God, there are quite a few that I enjoyed. First and foremost, I would have to say the city of Gotham itself is almost like a character in this one. I feel like they took elements of the Tim Burton Batman, like the real rainy, dreary steam coming out of every street corner, real grungy type look to it. They had that Burton-esque look, as well as when you get the wide angle shots of the city, there's a lot of the Christopher Nolan's Batman films, like big, huge, sprawling city. And really, it kind of came across as like a comic book version of New York City. They had the Madison Square Garden kind of look-alike area. They had the garden as the actual place, like a place that was like the set piece for one of the action scenes towards the end. It's like, yeah, this thing is kind of like a comic book New York, which is really, really cool. I really, really enjoyed the aesthetic of the city, and I think it blended multiple different versions of Gotham together very well. Moving past that though, we gotta talk about Jeffrey Wright's Jim Gordon. Man, he is one of my favorite parts of the movie. I like how much he's in the film, and I like the things that he had to do in the film. Most of the time you see Jim Gordon like he's reserved and he's back and he's calling up backup. We did get an action scene with Jim Gordon in it in The Dark Knight Rises, but he wasn't like Jim Gordon in the coat and the mustache. Like, he was covered up from head to toe. We didn't know it was him. Here in The Batman, we have Jim Gordon, full mustache and glasses, trench coat, and he's about that action. I really enjoyed seeing him pull his weapon and shoot. My most, like, the funniest, and like, I don't know, I guess it's my sense of humor, but I chuckled when Batman told him, hey, no guns. And Jim Gordon was like, shit. No, sir. Like, that is your thing. You cannot have a gun. I'm coming in here with the hammers out. Like, I'm gonna handle business. Somebody try to pop up on me, I'm shooting them. And I liked that attitude from Jim Gordon. The fact that he's like, hey man, I'm not a trained fighter. You are. You can have that. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed, again, seeing him exchange shots several times in the movie. I enjoyed seeing him like dragging people out of harm's way and like really being active. Not just the Commissioner Gordon sitting back and, you know, calling the shots and meeting on the rooftop. Like, nah, he had things to do, and I enjoyed that. I liked Colin Farrell's Penguin. I really did. They did a lot to kind of make you forget that it was Colin Farrell, and that was cool in itself. But I liked the slight comedic relief that he provided. The fact that he just was a presence, and as wild as things was and as wild as the situations were that he found himself in, he just never hesitated to, you know, be himself. And I like that. Paul Dano as the Riddler. First of all, when they took the mask off, you know, and we're getting into spoilers here, but when they took his mask off, my thought was, man, you would think that he had to get jacked to be this intimidating, but he didn't. Like, he looked very much like he normally does in any other property that Paul Dano has played in, but he was incredibly menacing throughout the movie as he delivered all his lines. Real spoilers here, when he did all the different video calls and dropped all the different clues, like, hey, he really brought it as the Riddler. And talking about that character in particular, I must say they did a great job with making the Riddler a formidable foe in this movie, because in most movies, or in most times we see the Riddler, is the Arkham games that I can think of. I think of the Jim Carrey Riddler. Like, he himself is never a real threat. But he felt like a real threat in this one. And we talk about other comic book properties and we compare things, apples and oranges and stuff, but I feel like the Riddler in this, for this version of Batman, was like a Thanos level threat. Because when you think about it, he got everything he wanted. He accomplished his plan, like mission accomplished. I did everything I wanted to do. Nobody was able to stop me. Even when I got caught on purpose. I accomplished everything I set out to do. So he was impressive in that way. And the fact that when his plan was finally unfolding, he never stopped giving a great performance. Like right up until the credits rolled, when Paul Dano was around, he delivered, and I enjoyed his performance a whole lot. Continuing along the lines of spoilers and talking about Robert Pattinson's Batman, we're going to get into one real specific scene here. So I liked most of what I saw from him. He didn't actually spend much time as Bruce Wayne, and when he did, it was him interacting with Alfred, and that is what I did not like. He just was a bit too combative. First time I think they were on screen together, he again, spoilers, he hit him with the whole, hey man, you're not my father. Like, hey bro, like, he was there when your dad died. Like, he was there, you growing up without him. Like, Thomas Wayne was his homeboy too. Like, I understand, the anger and all that, but like, come on, bro. Like, you're a bit too combative for my taste. Continuing along that lines of scenes and interactions between those two, I did not care for the hospital scene. After Alfred had gotten blown up and Pattinson's there on his side and like they're having the confrontation. I'm like, man, you just seem like you don't know what's going on. With him not knowing what's going on, there's elements to that we'll talk about when we get to the story. But talking about the interactions, just the scenes, I didn't like any of his stuff with Alfred. What I did like and what I really, really enjoyed was, one, his chemistry with Zoe Kravitz. That was great. Secondly, and more importantly, I really, 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 really enjoyed the scene with him and Riddler. When the Riddler was saying Bruce Wayne. And at that point, you got to see how well Robert Pattinson can truly act. Because again, I'm the type of person where I liked the Martha scene, because just seeing Ben Affleck's eyes start to shift in that helmet and him, it gave off the sense to me like, hey, he's taking the clues of things that he knows about the situation and he's putting them together. I feel like the same thing happened here with Robert Pattinson in that scene where you could look at his eyes and he starts to kind of like dart around the room, and his body language, even through the suit, is padded and it's got all the stuff on it. It's like he started to shrink a bit. Like, I don't know if he knows who I am. He's saying my name. Does he know who I am? That really came across very well. Like the shock and the, hey man, I don't know how I'm gonna play this. How am I going to play this if he accuses me of being Bruce Wayne? I don't know how to get out of this one. But then when it was revealed by the Riddler that he hadn't figured it out and he was just complaining that he hadn't caught Bruce Wayne, he didn't get to eliminate Bruce Wayne as he was a name on the list, it was like, oh, now I'm back. Like, I know what to do now. I know how to approach him now because, I have my footing in this situation, where a few minutes ago, a few seconds ago, he really didn't have his footing. And that was impressive to see a person fully covered. All you can see is his face and eyes, like the bottom of his face and his eyes. And he really like shrank and showed a lot of uncertainty in a character where, let's be honest, most of the emotions that we see from Batman come from like comic book pages, animated video games, animated movies. We don't see a lot of the emotion come across in the cape and cowl and like being delivered. I think Ben Affleck did it well. I think Robert Pattinson did it better under the cape and cowl. So really, really good job from him. Specifically in that scene, I liked him as Batman, and I liked him in that moment of, hey, uncertainty. I don't know what you know. Very impressive. But going back to story though, and talking about the story, I give the story a 9 out of 10 on my little scale of talking about things. And it's very important because I said, in the hospital, Bruce came across as a guy who really didn't fully understand all the things that were going on. And he was still very angry. He was still very driven by that emotion. And it's like, okay, that's very true. That's all very true. But that plays into the central theme, one of the central themes of the story of Batman undergoing this transformation from being just a physical force to being, hey, I'm more than just a physical force. I know things. Let's get into specifics of what I'm talking about. In the beginning of this movie, like, they did a very great job of showing you how scary people felt towards the Batman. Even the good, innocent people were afraid of him. He was a symbol of terror. When that sign showed in the sky at night, everyone knew, like, hey, he's out there, he's lurking in the shadows, and he's gonna come out and brutalize somebody. And he sure did in the beginning parts of this movie. But the whole theme of the movie was him moving past being just an instrument of fear and like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna beat people down. He went from being that to being more of an actual hero, somebody that the good people of Gotham could look at as almost like a savior, an actual knight, dark knight, if you will. In the beginning, I'm whipping everybody and everybody's gonna be in fear of me. And by the end of the film, we're getting more of like the hero and more of like, hey, I'm gonna punish the bad and I'm gonna help the good. And that is gonna change Gotham. And that's what's gonna change Gotham. It feels obvious to me as a person who's watched, but again, we've seen all these Batman before and we know where he has to get to. This was a movie about him getting to that point. As well as this, Batman in this movie is portrayed, and this is a story point, he's portrayed as the smartest person in the room, yes, but that is because he's not in the room with the Riddler. And when he is in the room with the Riddler, he's not the smartest person in the room. The Riddler has planned things out perfectly, and Bruce has not yet become that great detective that we know him to be from the comics and animated series and movies and things like that. He's always a step behind the Riddler in this movie. It's very evident that he is sharp. He is the sharpest person that is investigating. But at the same time, you're not on the level with the Riddler. You are not the Batman who is always one step ahead of his enemy. And the same Batman, if you give him prep time, he can defeat any foe because he can prepare. You are not there yet. And it's evident in this movie, and this movie was very much about him learning the hard lesson of, hey, if I don't get smarter about the way I deal with some of these people, I'm going to continuously lose good people in Gotham City. Because honestly, it's not Infinity War levels of the bad guy won, but in truth, the bad guy won here. Like, he did everything he wanted, man. The boy said, hey, I'm gonna ruin Gotham City. And he ruined Gotham City in like 7 or 8 days. Like, went from a normal city, normal Halloween night, to the city's underwater. And multiple high-ranking officials are dead. And corruption has been exposed. And blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, you did what you came to do. Batman didn't and couldn't stop you. In talking about Batman and his level of smarts, I must say that leads me to pace, because this movie was paced pretty well. As you watch it, I felt like there are small things that you can take out that can make a 10 to 15 minute difference in the runtime. This movie felt long, is what I'm getting at. I felt as though I had been in there all day. Like, I was full on breakfast when I went in to watch the Batman, and by the time I came out, it's like, man, I missed lunch and I'm starving. And here's what I mean when I talk about the smartness of Batman being linked to the runtime. Like, the whole chase scene, and again, the chase scene here and all the action throughout the movie is pristine. It's great fight choreography. It's shot well. You can see the effects with the bullets bouncing off the suit and all that stuff. It was fire. But this chase scene, one of the best chase scenes that we get from Batman, it's like, hey, man, if you were smarter, that's 10 minutes of the movie we could just cut out if you would have just saw this and knew some Spanish. It was funny that the Penguin was the one that like pointed out, like, hey, you don't know Spanish? Like, you don't get this? Like, hey, just change this to that and bam, we good. But man, it makes me wonder, like, had this Batman been just a little bit more crisp, a little bit more well-rounded, would we have gotten a much shorter movie? And again, writers make decisions to have the runtime be what it is and to show the things that they want to show. So obviously that chase scene was a big deal to like feature in the film. And I get it. I enjoyed it. I liked it. But at the conclusion of it and after the interrogation of the penguin, it's kind of like, man, that's a useless 7 to 8 minutes. You could have avoided all this with, knowing high school Spanish. So, yeah, I felt like the movie was long. And while I can't put my finger on what I would cut out, I do feel like some things could have been cut. Just like small 2 minutes here, a minute here, 30 seconds here. What are we looking at this person looking out the window for right here? Like all that, like a lot of that stuff can just like cut that stuff off, and then bam, we have a movie with, a 2 hour and 20 minute runtime as opposed to 2 hours and 45 minutes and 8 minutes of credits. Entertainment value for me is a 10 out of 10 because it was riveting. Like the mystery angle kept me on the edge of my seat. The action, again, pristine throughout. The cinematography shot very well. Like everything about the movie is entertaining. The fact that they present you with a very, very dark movie, but then that darkness is used so well throughout, and not just by Batman, by the way. Like there's several different moments where other people like use those shadows to their advantage. And I really enjoyed like most of that in the movie. Like there's not much to complain about as far as it being entertaining. The only complaint that I can level in the hardest category I was on this movie was the rewatchability. And here's why we say rewatchability is so key for me grading a movie. Yes, I recommend it. So I start off with a 5 points out of 10. Like, yes, it's recommended. If you like murder mysteries, if you like comic book properties, if you like seeing good action, if you like just a well shot, beautiful, well scored, the score is so good movie. If you like those elements, this is a movie for you. My only big problem with the rewatchability of it is that it's not fun. Spider-Man No Way Home was a long movie, and deservedly so. Like there was a lot that they tried to accomplish with it, but man, it was fun, and it's a ride that I can go on again and again and again. This Batman movie is not a fun ride. It's a good ride. It's top-notch stuff. But to say I want to go through watching this rain and this dreariness, the words that I used specifically were dark, dreary, and intentionally miserable is how it felt. And to go through that at almost 3 hours with almost no fun, you gotta have a weird time, at least in my opinion. I feel like you gotta have a weird sense of humor to laugh at some of the stuff that goes on in this movie. But it's not fun. So to go through all that for another 3 hours, I think that's too much of a commitment. So I can only give the rewatchability a 6 out of 10. Because yes, I recommend it. Yes, I probably will rewatch it at some point, but to pay money and go sit in the theater and spend the better half of an afternoon again, or an evening again, it's like, I can't do it. Can't do it. I don't think I can do it. So good movie, great movie. Well shot, well acted. Didn't care for a few choices made in the movie. Again, that confrontational relationship with Alfred and the Batman. But very good movie, just not a fun movie. But everything don't have to be fun. And this was a good one to me, very good one to me, but just not a ride that I'm willing to go on a whole bunch more times. Let me know what you think about, the Batman. What was your favorite parts? Do you feel like it wasn't fun? Because I feel like it wasn't fun. Can you sit through it again? Can you pay money to watch it more than one time? Will you be seeing it again? Let me know all those things in the comment section. If you watch this far, subscribe to the channel. Enjoy yourself, guard your heart, and go watch something good.